Chapter 26. What I had seen and what Henrietta had told me felt unreal. As cliché as it sounded, I really did believe that I would wake from this insane dream, and I would be back to plain old human self. Yet when Henrietta had left me in my dorm room and I had gone into the bathroom to splash cold water on my face, I slowly began to realize that this was never going away. I was a vampire who could talk to the dead. Yet despite this bomb, I was still a college student. I still had essays to write and lectures to attend. I did not have time to deal with this, Paranormal or Caspar for that matter. I closed my eyes and visualized the door in my head. By opening and closing that door, I could now control Caspar from forcing his way into my head. And I would need to now, since I had to keep my vampire talent a secret. I glanced down at the floor and the splintered wood that lay across my carpet. Why couldn't I have a practical vampire ability, like an unnatural talent for DIY or mending stuff that my stupid husband broke, instead of having an ability that might get me killed? But for now, my talent did not seem a real thing. Sure, I had seen a crazy-looking lady through a doorway, but that was it. This, in my opinion, was not concrete proof that I was suddenly talking to the dead, but just in case it was probably best to keep my mouth shut about it. I left the bathroom and began to clean up the shattered remnants of my bathroom door. At some point, I was going to have to call maintenance and report to them that my door was broke, although I had no idea how I was going to explain to them how it broke in the first place. I couldn't exactly tell them the truth. Stooping down, I picked up a large wooden peace door and held it in my hand. I had planned to dump in the corner until I could find a disposable rubble bag or something, but before I could even move, my bedroom door swung open and Duke burst in. "Don't do it," he said, slapping the wooden shard out of my hands. "It doesn't work like that, and if you do it, I can guarantee it will hurt like hell." I stared back at him, lost for words. Duke quickly pulled me against his chest and said, "I know Caspar can be a monster, but you have to give him a chance. You can't just choose to go out like this." My face was uncomfortably squished against his white cotton shirt, and I still couldn't understand what he was talking about. "What are you doing?" I mumbled into his chest. "Comforting you," Duke replied with a concerned tone. "That's sweet, Duke, but I'm not exactly upset," I said. With that revelation, Duke pulled back and looked down at me, studying my expression. He searched my eyes and eventually said, "So does that mean you have passed the threshold of sorrow and entered into some kind of ambivalent state of mind, where you have not thought or concerned for your own future happiness, welfare, and well-being?" I raised an eyebrow in reply and said, "I was thinking more along the lines of, I am not upset at all, period." "So why were you holding the stake?" he asked. "You mean the piece of door that Caspar smashed last night?" The cloud of confusion lifted from his eyes and he made an "oh" noise and then explained. "Nico and I were searching for you, and I was hopping over the rooftops when I spied you holding the pointy stick of wood, and I thought that you were trying to hurt yourself." "As in, you thought I was about to stake myself," I said. "Okay, in my defense, Caspar called me an hour ago freaking out because he couldn't find you. He called me and Nico in a state and explained about what happened last night and how you had run off in the morning. What?" I gasped, feeling the color draining from my face. Oh my God, Caspar had told Nico and Duke about us doing it last night. Duke suddenly twigged and raised his hands up in defense. "Oh no, you don't understand. Caspar was worried and he may have divulged some background context as to why you were upset. But, come on Hazel, we are adults and you are married, so it isn't exactly weird." I picked up the wooden shard Duke had slapped out of my hand and aimed it at his chest. "Get out of my room right now," I yelled. Duke eyeballed the wooden fragment of door and slowly nodded his head. "Okay, I think this is a conversation you need to have with Caspar," he said, slowly backing out the door. "You can tell Caspar that if he comes near me, then I swear on all that is holy, I will stick this piece of wood up where the proverbial sun does not shine," I snapped. "Message received loud and clear, boss," Duke said, stumbling out into the corridor. I slammed my bedroom door shut and threw the piece of wood across the room. Furiously, I paced around my bedroom, calling Caspar every name under the sun. How could he do that? How could he just go and blab to everybody that we had done it last night? Was it a masochistic display of, "Hey, look at me? I got laid last night and I am the man," to all his friends? Why would he do that to me? I sank down onto the floor in disillusionment. Last night had been confusing, but it had been special. Well, to me at least. But now I felt cheap and dirty. I thought I meant something to Caspar, and maybe I was foolish for believing him. The whole "you are my soulmate" thing is enough to sucker any girl into believing that she was special. Well, I guess I wasn't that special after all. Chapter 27. My clock was blinking 1012 a.m. when Caspar decided to get in touch with me. He called my cell, which vibrated angrily on my bedside table, and woke me up from a restful sleep. When I picked up my cell and saw the caller ID and immediately rejected the call. Moments later, my cell alerted me to a text message from Caspar. "Hazel, we need to talk. I cannot reach your mind and I cannot sense what you are thinking or feeling." "Good," I muttered to myself bitterly. Henrietta and I had gone to great lengths to shut Caspar out from my head. "I understand that you are upset with me, and if it makes you feel any better, I want you to know that I am not pleased with me either. I really want to talk to you, and I know you're mad, and I am willing to deal with whatever hellfire you want to throw at me. God only knows that anything this empty silence without you is killing me." I stared down at his words on my cell phone screen and wondered if he was bluffing or genuine. I scrolled down to the final sentence and read, "Please let me come to you." My thumb hovered over the screen, lingering over the reply button while I debated with myself whether or not to invite Caspar over for a talk. The longer I looked at the text message, the more I felt my resolve weakening. It was like Caspar's words were reaching out and holding on to me, urging me to reply to his text. I quickly shoved my cell under my pillow and turned over in my bed. No, I wasn't going to call him or text him, not just yet anyway. Caspar and his sorry excuses could wait until morning. Until then, I would not even bother humoring him with a reply. As far as I was concerned, Caspar could uncomfortably hang on until morning for a reply. I crawled back into bed and pulled the blankets over my head. I was so tired I thought I would fall asleep straight away, but I didn't. Instead, I tossed and turned in my bed thinking about Caspar and all the stupid things he had ever said, which seemed a lot, but could not be that much considering we had been together only for a few days. I thought back to his text message and remembered what he had written about the empty silence. I was feeling that empty silence too. A little voice inside me then asked, "Why not text him back and bring him over here?" I hugged my pillow miserably and thought to myself, how could I ask him over when he had hurt me so badly? I curled up in my bed and began to count my breathing after 10 minutes of tossing and turning in my bed. Restlessly, I turned over again and exhaled loudly. Partly because I was tired, but partly because I was frustrated with Caspar. Either way, when I breathed out, I noticed something odd. My breath was condensing into white wisps of water vapor. The room couldn't be that cold, I thought sitting up in bed. I reached for my bedside lamp and flipped the switch, but nothing happened. Then I noticed the next odd thing. My alarm clock that had been working 10 minutes earlier was also dead. The weird thing was that the lamp ran off the mains, but my alarm clock was battery operated. I breathed out again and noticed the water vapor this time was a stronger white, and the swirls of mist it created were much more defined and pronounced, as if the temperature in the room was dropping. Outside my room, I heard the main door that divided my dorm level from the main corridor swing open. Howls of drunken laughter and chatter echoed down the corridor, but were quickly silenced by an angry shush. "Shut up, idiots. You will wake her up." I recognized the voice immediately. It was Olivia McAdam. Someone from my dorm level must have let her and her friends in. I heard the click-clack of their heels down the corridor and felt the room growing colder, as if it was responding to them getting closer. When they were outside my door, I heard Olivia giggle. "I am going to shave her stupid eyebrows off." There was a pause, followed by the metallic clinking of a set of keys. I quickly realized what was happening, because it had been done many times before by other students. Someone had managed to slip into the janitor's office downstairs and steal the master key for the whole dormitory. At this point, I could have said something, but for some reason I didn't. It was cold. So very cold. It felt like something or someone was sucking the warmth out of the atmosphere. Outside, I could hear Olivia fumbling with the lock. The door rattled and the handle turned. Then the door was slowly pushed forward. There was a murmur, or rather a shiver of protest from Olivia's friends as cold air came rushing out into the corridor. Olivia responded with a harsh whisper, "Be quiet or she will wake up." They had no idea I was wide awake and waiting for them. My bed was on the other side of the room, so I was hidden from view. I watched as they pushed the bedroom door open a fraction and stopped. For some reason, no one was stepping through the door. Quietly, I thought to myself, no one was stepping through the door because they could sense something was wrong. The room was growing colder and colder with each passing second, and even I was starting to sense there was something terribly wrong. I pulled the blankets around my chin and felt a sudden, sickening sensation in the pit of my stomach. From my bed, I saw Olivia's hand emerge through the crack in the door holding a cell phone. Her finger hit a button, and white light from the cell phone lit up the far corner of my bedroom. My bed was on the other side of the room and was shielded from view. The light panned slowly across the room and stopped when it reached the open doorway of my dorm bathroom, because the light of the cell phone was being captured and reflected back at Olivia in a shimmering dazzle by what I can only describe as a kind of glittering substance that clung to the wooden frame of my bathroom door. The temperature in the room was still dropping. "What is that?" I heard Olivia ask exactly what I was thinking. No one answered her question. Her arm moved forward, pushing the light of the cell phone deeper into the bathroom. The light was pushed a little further through bathroom door way before stopping dead. The light should have been able to reach further and illuminate the whole bathroom, but there was a dark, inky blackness stopping it, a kind of strange shadow which the light could not touch. While I watched it from my bed, and Olivia watched it from the hallway, the shadow breathed, exhaling in low, rumbling growl that sent a white plume of water vapor from an invisible mouth out into the beam of light from the cell phone. Olivia emitted a small scream of fright, and her arm instinctively began to withdraw out of my bedroom. But before her arm could fully recede, there was another growl from the bathroom, and my bedroom door on its own accord slammed violently shut on Olivia's arm. There was a loud snapping noise followed by a blood-curdling scream. "Get it off!" Olivia screamed as the door continued to crush her arm against the doorframe. Her friends panicked, and I heard the chaos in the corridor as they pushed against my bedroom door trying to free Olivia's arm. Immediately, I jumped out of bed to help and ran to the bedroom door, preparing myself to pry the door open and free Olivia's broken arm. However, when I grabbed onto the door handle and pulled, the door open for me without the slightest resistance. Olivia's arm was free, and the 5 people who had been shoving at my bedroom door toppled through the doorway and onto the floor with several loud thuds. The pervasive cold in my room suddenly lifted, and the bedside lamp in the corner of my room flickered back to life, and the shadow that had been in my bathroom was gone. I looked up at Olivia and saw the unnatural bend in the middle of her forearm. Her friends scrambled to her side, but Olivia took no notice of them. Her eyes were wide and unblinking while her gaze was fixed. She was stood completely frozen in an almost catatonic state, staring into the darkness of the bathroom. Chapter 28. The blue flashing lights of the ambulance lit up my room for a few seconds as the ambulance carrying Olivia drove past my dorm hall. The dormitory hall supervisors had been quickly woken after the whole event had taken place. Olivia's screaming had not only woken up the people sleeping on this floor, but the floor above and the floor below as well. A few minutes after Olivia had gone catatonic, the whole dorm floor had been invaded by several dozen people who had all been horrified by the sight of Olivia's broken arm. When the dormitory hall supervisors finally arrived after being called, an ambulance had already been called and Olivia's parents notified. Although no one exactly knew what had happened to Olivia. She had been the only one peeking through my bedroom door, and no one else had seen what had frightened her. When the supervisors and paramedics asked her what had happened, Olivia had been unresponsive. After that, the supervisors drifted from person to person trying to establish what had happened to Olivia. But no one knew well, no one except me. The entity that had been standing in my bathroom had slammed the door with Olivia's arm in it. It was that thing which had broken the bone in Olivia's arm like a twig. That horrible sound of the moment her bone snapped replayed itself in my head over and over. My stomach churned uneasily, and I tried to swallow down whatever sickness I was feeling. I couldn't throw up here. If I threw up, then everyone would see what I had for dinner. A pint of A-negative blood. I needed to get out of here. There was no way I was going to spend the rest of the night in this room. I walked over to my bed and slipped my hand under the pillow. I wrapped my fingers around the cell phone and pulled it out. I pressed the wake-up button and was surprised to see that my phone was flat. A shiver ran down my spine as I realized whatever had been standing in my bathroom earlier had managed to drain 8 hours of battery life out of my phone. I crossed my room and connected the phone to the charger on my desk. In a few minutes, when my phone had enough battery to function, I would call Caspar. Until then, I would have to sit tight and focus on anything other than that awful sound. There was a soft knock on my bedroom door, and one of the dormitory hall supervisors called Mark poked his head through and asked, "Am I okay to come in?" I replied with a nod, and Mark walked into my bedroom. He scanned my bedroom and then paused to point towards my bathroom doorway and the pile of wood on my floor. Before I could answer his question, my bedroom door was flung open, and Caspar strode in wearing jeans and hoodie. The sickening fear in my gut evaporated, and silently I thanked God. Caspar locked eyes on me, and I could see the worry etched into his expression. He ignored Mark and crossed the room to where I stood and placed his hands either side of my face. "Are you okay?" he asked me softly. I nodded my head weakly at him. "I'm okay." His thumb caressed the side of my cheek as I spoke, and I could feel the tension and anxiety melting away. I leaned my head into his hand and watched him respond with a frustrated but relieved sigh. "Thank fuck," he whispered harshly before pressing an urgent kiss onto my forehead. I closed my eyes, savoring the brief intimacy between us, and felt bereft when he pulled away from me to face Mark, the dormitory hall supervisor. "The bathroom door was my fault," Caspar explained. "Hazel had hit her head in the shower and I needed to get to her in a hurry, so I broke down the bathroom door." Mark regarded Caspar with derisive stare and replied, "And what was a lecturer doing in a student's room?" Caspar looked at me and said, "Hazel is my wife. If my jaw could drop open like cartoon, it would have." Caspar slipped his hand into mine and pulled me to his side. We got married over summer, and it was pure coincidence that I was asked to cover for one of Hazel's seminar tutors. Of course, once I realized the problem, I spoke to the head of department immediately, who advised us to discreetly hide our relationship from the other students, Caspar explained. Mark folded his arms and said, "I will need to check with the head of department and the dean that your story is true, but it still does not explain how Olivia McAdam's arm ended up getting broken in your wife's bedroom." Caspar suddenly stiffened and growled, "What exactly are you insinuating?" "The people who were with Olivia at the time of the incident said that they felt someone pushing against the door, trying to force it shut on Olivia's arm," Mark said. "And you think it was Hazel?" Caspar replied. "Well, she was the only person in the room at the time, and from what I heard, things between Hazel and Olivia were not exactly rosy," Mark said. I shook my head, horrified by the accusation that was laid against me. "No, that isn't true. I tried to help Olivia. I was the one who opened the door," I tried to explain. Mark raised a cynical eyebrow and asked, "Then who slammed the door shut on Olivia's arm? The door must have been forced shut from the inside." I opened my mouth to reply, but stopped myself. There was no way I could explain to them what I had seen. There was no way that they would believe me if I told them that some sort of entity had been in my bathroom and that it had sucked the warmth and electricity from my room, then viciously attacked Olivia. "I don't know," I eventually whispered. Caspar's hand tightened its grip around mine and he said, "That is a ridiculous accusation. Hazel is just one girl. How could she possibly have enough strength to slam the bedroom door shut with the kind of force that would break bones? There were half a dozen people on the other side fighting to push the door open. And you were telling me that Hazel was strong enough to hold that door shut all by herself?" Mark hesitated momentarily and replied, "I don't know what exactly happened, Mr. Reagan, but what I do know that the only person in this bedroom at the time Olivia McAdam's arm was broken was Hazel." The feeling of bile was rising up into my throat because I knew logically that it made sense to blame me. I was the one who had been in the bedroom when Olivia's arm was snapped in two. There was no way I could tell this person about the thing in bathroom. I didn't even know if I could tell Caspar about what had truly happened in case it was something ghostly. What if my ability had caused Olivia's arm to be broken? What if I had summoned some kind of ghost? Chapter 29. When Henrietta and I had practiced shutting Caspar out of my mind, Henrietta had taught me to visualize a door that represented a gateway between my mind and Caspar's. However, when I thought of the door, I imagined two doors. Henrietta had explained what the first door was, but she had never explained what exactly the second door was about. Henrietta said that I have a connection to the other side, a place where the souls of the dead went to after their mortal bodies had perished. I think visited the other side on the night Caspar killed me. In the back of my mind was a hazy memory from the night I had been converted into a vampire. After Caspar had drained my blood, I had felt myself drift apart from my physical body and into a place that lacked any notion of space or time. It hadn't been the heaven I had imagined as child with white clouds and heavenly angels, but it wasn't a bad place. It was just peaceful and still. It was from that place that I had Caspar calling to me, begging me to come back to him. I remember drifting towards him, but I also remembered a small part of me staying behind. When I had woken up in Caspar's bed, I thought it was a strange dream, but now I was not too sure. Mark, the dormitory hall supervisor, left my bedroom to talk to the other hall supervisors. Caspar had told Mark that he had been visiting me in my dorm bedroom, but had assured Mark that we were married, and the appropriate people knew, although I had no idea if this was true or not. "What am I going to do?" I said, fighting back the tears. Caspar gently folded his arms around me and replied, "Nothing. Nico and I will take care of this. By tomorrow evening, all of this will be over." I leaned against chest and rubbed my cheek against the warm cotton material of the gray hoodie Caspar was wearing. I had never seen him dress so casually before. Caspar was normally a shirt and tie kind of guy. I closed my eyes and breathed in the warm, familiar smell of sandalwood and grumbled, "I am still mad at you about telling Duke and Nico about us." "I know you are mad at me, and I am sorry," Caspar replied. "Why did you do it?" I asked. "I panicked," Caspar explained. "I came home and found you gone, so I tried to reach out to you, but found the connection blocked." I panicked. "I thought you might have run away or tried to do something stupid." "I told Nico and Duke because I thought that you had woken up, regretted what happened between us last night, and that you didn't want to be with me anymore." Caspar's voice trailed off, and suddenly he seemed so insecure. He pressed against my body a little tighter, and I responded by lifting my arms around his neck. It seemed odd to me that someone as handsome, dark, and brooding as Caspar could have confidence issues. I raised my up to look at him and ask, "So you're telling me that this had nothing to do with impressing the boys?" Caspar glanced down at me with genuine shock and said, "Are you kidding me? I was going out of my fucking mind with worry." A slight smile fell over my face, and I said, "Good answer." Caspar lowered his head and covered his mouth over mine, delivering a soft, tender kiss that made my knees tremble. Thank God he was holding me up, because without his strong arms around my waist, I think I might have crumpled to the ground. I moved my lips against his, savoring the sweet flood of sensations that happened every time we touched. My hand lifted from his neck, and I tunneled my fingers through his dark, glossy hair, holding his head to mine. I loved the way my body seemed to fit so perfectly against his. It was like we really were meant for each other. An unwanted knock at the door interrupted our kiss, and the bedroom door opened. Caspar at first ignored the interruption, but when a uniformed police officer stepped through the door, I tried to pull away. The police officer stepped into the room and closed the door behind him. Caspar turned and smiled at the policeman and asked, "Is it done?" The policeman nodded his head and then suddenly began to change shape and form. I watched in surreal curiosity as the police officer changed into Nico. Nico glanced around the room and said, "All ends have been tied up. We are free to go?" "And the girl?" Caspar asked, referring to Olivia. "She is at the hospital being treated," Nico replied, but then furrowed his eyebrows. "I don't know what the kid had taken, but she was psychotic, babbling about a demon in Hazel's bathroom." "A demon?" My stomach lurched forward and a terrible uneasiness settled over me. Demons were worse than ghosts, much worse. I clung to Caspar harder and he felt my fingertips biting into his arm. "Hazel?" He murmured my name, suddenly looking down at me. I swallowed hard and asked, "Can we get out of here? I am starting to feel unwell." Caspar nodded with his eyes full of concern and replied, "Sure we can." His hand slipped around my waist and he led me gently out of my dormitory hall, where outside a black SUV was waiting for us. Caspar opened the door for me and I slid into the plush leather interior. Duke was in the driver's seat, drumming his hand impatiently against the steering wheel. Finally, he dramatically sighed. "I have been waiting for hours. What the hell happened in there?" I thought Caspar was going to answer for me, but to my surprise, both Caspar and Duke were looking at me for an explanation. Mentally, I stumbled, my mind replaying over and over what Henrietta had told me. I couldn't tell anyone about what I could see or hear. If I did, then I might end up dead myself. So I gazed down to the floor and replied, "I don't know." Chapter 30. The journey back to the apartment was quiet. For most of the drive, I pretended to be asleep just so that no one could ask me what had really happened in my bedroom and how Olivia's arm managed to break. Occasionally, there were moments in the car when I did open my eyes, and when I did, I found that Nico and Duke, who were sitting in the front, were exchanging suspicious glances. They knew something was not right. The sickness I felt in my gut right now was killing me. I felt like I was walking on a tightrope across a treacherous ravine, where one gust of wind could knock me sideways and send me tumbling to a terrible death. I drew my knees up into my chest and shivered. "Are you cold?" I heard Caspar murmur to me. His arm wrapped around my shoulder and drew me into the side of his body. Sleepily, I nodded and snuggled against his chest, peeking out of one eye to see what Duke and Nico were doing. Duke had turned in his seat and was eyeballing me and Caspar. "Is she okay?" Duke asked Caspar quietly. "She will be," Caspar replied, pressing a kiss against my hair. Minutes later, we arrived at the apartment block. Nico pulled outside the doors so that Caspar and I could head straight to the apartment while he parked the car in the underground garage. Caspar gently squeezed my shoulders and said, "Hazel, we have arrived." I played along, pretending that I had fallen asleep again, and rubbed my eyes. "Okay, but I want to go straight to bed." Nico, who had been fairly quiet up to this point, piped up and said, "I want to ask you some questions about what happened tonight before you go to bed." Caspar tightened his grip around my shoulders and said, "Hazel is tired, Nico. You can ask her questions tomorrow." Nico's lips tightened into a thin line, and he replied begrudgingly, "Very well." Caspar opened the car door and quickly swept me into the foyer and into his own private elevator that led straight up to his penthouse apartment. I was thankful that Caspar had spared me a grilling from Nico and Duke. I needed to talk to Henrietta first and tell her what had happened. She might know how to handle this. As we stand in the elevator, Caspar turns to me and says to me, "Hazel, I think it would be best for you to remain at the apartment for now." I nodded my head in agreement. There was no way I was going back to my dorm room after that thing had invaded my bathroom and broke Olivia's arm. Caspar smiled at me, evidently pleased that I had chosen to agree with him instead of putting up a fight. He swept the back of hand across my cheek and said, "I am so happy that you are finally seeing us for what we are." "And what is that?" I smiled back woodenly. "A couple. True mates. Two souls destined to be together forever," Caspar replied. His sincerity was so moving that I actually felt bad about lying to him. He had no idea that I was going along with him to fulfill my own agenda. I began to nervously play with his mother's emerald engagement ring on my finger and said, "Well, I am starting to come to terms with the fact I am no longer human. I am a vampire, and I cannot go on pretending to be a human any longer." Caspar lowered his head and brushed his lips across mine and replied, "This is a wonderful revelation. Hazel, we can finally begin our eternity together." "Yes, we can," I said, kissing the corner of his mouth. At this point, I was no longer sure if I was acting or not. My hands found their own way around Caspar's neck and held him in place as he began to kiss me slowly. This wasn't the plan. The plan was to go straight to bed. I shouldn't be encouraging Caspar like this. I pressed my body against his, and when the elevator doors pinged opened, we stumbled into his apartment holding each other tight. This was not the plan. Stick to the plan, Hazel. I thought about pulling away for about half a second, but then I decided not to. Caspar had shown me last night how his body could make me forget things I did not want to remember, and after seeing that creature stood in my bathroom all twisted and distort, I needed something to help me forget. "Take me, Caspar," I begged huskily. "Make me yours again." A low growl emitted from Caspar's throat and he kissed me hard, crushing his mouth against mine. My fingernails dug into his shoulder and I gasped as Caspar suddenly lifted me up onto his hips. I immediately wrapped my legs around his waist and continued to kiss him as he strode across the apartment towards his bedroom. This felt like heaven. He felt like heaven, and for a few hours he could make me forget everything bad that had ever happened to me. Caspar kicked his bedroom door open and walked into the massive space, then shut the door behind him. Holding me tight, he walked over to the bed and lay me gently down on the sheets. He then looked at me and asked, "If we do this, do you promise not to run away again?" "I promise," I whispered breathlessly. Caspar lay me back on the sheets and for next several of hours made me forget myself completely.